Hello, I'm National Weather Service Meteorologist Peter Chan with your Alaska hazardous weather update concerning this latest storm system that will be impacting much of the state as we go through this weekend. The key points I want to put across is we have an unusually warm and wet low pressure system that has an atmospheric river with it. That's an enhanced area of moisture coming in from the subtropic regions of the Pacific that's going to cause widespread adverse weather this weekend across a good portion of the state. Areas where the air is colder and the precipitation all stays snow, it's going to be heavy snow and strong winds, especially in central and southwest areas of the interior and even back down into the eastern Aleutians. On the backside of the low, there could be some pretty heavy snow and potentially near or blizzard conditions as a result of wind and snow falling there. Further east in the warm air, pushing up across the Gulf into south central Alaska, heavy rainfall and strong winds, along with the potential for minor flooding, especially along creeks and rivers or in poor drainage areas where you have low-lying areas where the water can pond. And that'll be here again this Friday into Sunday. And then after all of this, it's going to turn much colder across the mainland next week. Arctic air will be heading southeastward across much of the state. So looking at the satellite imagery as of late this Friday morning, we've had a couple of lows move in advance this week that kind of set the stage and put moisture up here along the west coast into the north. We're still dealing with some of that and gusty winds. That's why there are winter storm warnings, winter weather advisories until later tonight to account for that along areas of the Arctic coast and in through the northwest. But more importantly, there is the next area of low pressure coming up from the North Pacific, and this is a very moist system. In fact, it has like 3 times the normal average precipitable water that we typically measure as meteorologists in the atmosphere. So that means there's a lot of moisture for it to work with to either create heavier rainfall or heavier snow. And this boundary is not going to move east right away. It's going to first have to wait for this low to work its way up across Bristol Bay into the southwest interior this weekend. And then finally, the cold air that's up there toward eastern Russia is going to be able to pivot around and come in across the mainland next week. First, northwest areas, and then eventually toward the Alcan border. But we have a lot of warnings, advisories, watches in effect. The first batch up here in the north, we have winter storm warnings for some light accumulating of snow, but more the blowing and just the reduced visibility. And that includes areas around Anativik, Adigan passes back toward Point Hope along the northwest coast up through Point Lay, Wainwright, Utqiagvik. We also have winter weather advisories for blowing snow, new exit toward Kaktovik, and that's all in effect until the early pre-dawn hours of Saturday morning. Meanwhile, more importantly, with the warm, moist air coming northward, we're going to see snowfall increase and become heavier this weekend along and just especially west of the Alaska Range. That would include areas west of Fairbanks down through Tanana and McGrath. As much as 10-20 inches of snow, locally over 2 feet of snow could fall in this region of the interior as we go through later tonight, especially Saturday and Sunday. Meanwhile, all this warm, moist air coming north. Winter weather advisories in effect for the upper portion of the Copper River Basin and on the south slopes here of the Alaska Range, say from Paxton Lake on over toward Cantwell. Several inches of snow will fall, though it could become mixed with some rain. Then back here in the southwest, we have areas that are going to pick up snow as well. Well, then it's heavy rain. We have flood watches, Susitna Valley all the way south through the Mat-Su down through Anchorage Bowl, Kenai Peninsula, and areas around Prince William Sound. We're looking at some very heavy rainfall amounts to be talking about here shortly. So looking at the winds first, the reason we have the first set of winter storm warnings and winter weather advisories, these strong winds are causing blowing snow and reduced visibility. Areas of the Brooks Range, North Slope, Arctic coast there, Beaufort Sea coastline. Then we have this next low coming up from the North Pacific. So this is allowing a surge of warm, moist air coming northward. And by tonight, we're going to have stronger winds coming in to areas around Anchorage and the Alaska Range, potential for some stronger wind gusts. The backside of the low, north winds will be increasing, and that's what's eventually going to catch Unalaska Dutch Harbor area, especially as we get into late tonight and on Saturday. Things going over to snow and blowing snow. But here's the wind areas in south central. Copper River area, especially Chitina up through Glen Allen, and then also toward Wasilla, Palmer, and into the Anchorage Bowl, 40, 50 mile per hour winds. The area, though, East Anchorage there up on hillside could see wind gusts as high as 60 to 70 miles an hour. Now, that's not as strong as the major windstorm event 2 weekends ago, but a number of trees and things have been weakened by those 100+ mile per hour winds that occurred in those higher elevations. So there's potential for further wind damage by trees that have been already weakened. Plus, you're going to have rain falling, and that could make the ground, if there's any thawing, make it easier for trees to come down. So keep that in mind. But the winds Saturday continue to have this southerly flow up into the Gulf, up into Cook Inlet and toward the Alaska Range. Meanwhile, winds strengthening on the backside of this low as north winds increasing there, moving into Dutch Harbor and on Alaska. And we're going to see snow, heavy snow, as I said, potential for blizzard or near blizzard conditions developing with that. And then on Sunday, we still have a broad area of winds. The winds generally along the Gulf Coast and Gulf will be gale force. We're not expecting any widespread storm force winds, but generally gale force. There could be some isolated storm force gusts, but not as strong as the system a couple weekends ago. But on the backside, north winds here through the eastern Bering are going to draw down colder air. So later Sunday into Monday, there will also be the potential for heavy to extreme freezing spray developing here, especially over the southeastern portion of the Bering, on the Bering side of the eastern Aleutians and the Alaska Peninsula. And then you throw in the precipitation amounts. This is the 3-day liquid precipitation forecast. That means rain and or melted snow. Just to give you a sense about how much moisture is coming in. This is from early Friday morning through early Monday morning. Notice where the focus is, along and south of the Alaska Range. Areas of the Susitna Valley, around Prince William Sound, the eastern Kenai, could see as much as 2 to 6 inches of rain. Even within the Anchorage Bowl, maybe 1 to 2 inches of rainfall. This is going to lead to runoff because of the ponding of water that can happen, or any of the drains getting clogged up. Meanwhile, in the cold air, generally west and north of Fairbanks, this is going to be all snow on the west side of the Alaska Range. McGrath, Tanana could see 10, 20 inches of snow, locally 2 feet in some areas. Also heavy snow down there toward Dutch Harbor. So this is going to be a system with a lot of impact across a broad area. So we have flood watches that will likely be updated to some sort of a flood advisory for this afternoon and certainly through the course of the weekend. But when you have this southerly, southeasterly component, the heaviest rainfall will be Skowentna on up to north of Talkeetna. This area here could see as much as 2 to 6 inches of rain. I said Anchorage area, 1 to 2 inch rainfall amounts within the bowl, which again, the ground is frozen. You have a metropolitan area with runoff, water can pond in streets and in low or poor drainage areas, plus some of the creeks and smaller rivers could experience minor flooding. And then this area along Prince William Sound, Valdez toward Whittier, Seward. There are some locations within here that could see anywhere from 2 to as much as 6 inches of rainfall. So if you're having to drive in this, just be aware. You can hydroplane, especially if you hit puddles. The water all of a sudden gets deeper. That's one of the greatest threats when driving. Also, you can find some of these, if you live off on one of these 2-track roads or whatever that prone to having water pond, you could also run into problems getting through in some places like that. So just be aware. The other concern, avalanche danger. Right now, as of Friday morning, we do have high avalanche danger in Hatcher Pass and then considerable avalanche danger from Turnagain Pass down through Summit Lake and Moose Pass, as well as the areas east of Valdez, including Thompson Pass. Would not be surprised if this were upgraded at some point this weekend. So if you're planning on any sort of backcountry recreation, especially in the higher country, be aware of the fact the avalanche danger will be certainly higher. And for next week, a big pattern shift ahead. Much colder and drier Arctic air will overspread the mainland starting early next week. Widespread sub-zero temperatures are on the way, especially across the interior. And like I mentioned, there could be some heavy to extreme freezing spray develop off the west coast, especially over the southeast portion of the Bering Sea to around the eastern Aleutians and on the Bering side of the Alaska Peninsula Sunday into Monday. Temperature-wise, we have had readings. Look at statewide. It's very mild, 40 degrees this Friday afternoon all the way up to the Yukon Flats and Fairbanks. We're going to see temperatures here in South Central and maybe areas of the outer coast of the Panhandle in the 40s to near 50 degrees in a few spots. Come Saturday, though, notice the colder air beginning to come in from the northwest. Along the Chukchi Sea coast, temperatures stay below zero. Still in the 40s, rainy, gusty winds here through areas of the southeast mainland including the Alaska Range. And then by Sunday afternoon, we have those sub-zero temperatures further progressing southeastward. We're going to see this cold air overspread much of the state here as we go through the early and middle part of next week. So get ready for some much colder temperatures. And as always, stay abreast of the latest weather information. Check out the latest forecast, any new advisories, warnings, watches. You can go to weather.gov/ARH. That's Alaska Region Headquarters. For additional weather information, go to weather.gov/ARH. And I wish everyone a safe weekend.